Hello, everybody. Conor here. Welcome to another 280 Mysteries We'll Never Get Back, where this episode, Mike is going to be joined by a very, very special guest, the front man of my favorite band, the Hold Steady, the legendary Craig Finn is joining us today. We're going to talk with him about his brand new album, Always Been, which comes with a new companion book called Lousy with Ghosts, where you get to explore the characters and situations in the songs on Always Been as short stories. So we were fascinated what that process was going to be like. We were excited to talk to him about his upcoming tour with Bob Mould. We were excited to talk with him about the Twins, and he was gracious enough to endure us and then solve a mystery with us. So without further ado, please welcome to the podcast the great Craig Finn. Hello, everybody. Conor here. Welcome to another 280 Mysteries We'll Never Get Back, where this episode, Mike is going to be joined by a very, very special guest, the front man of my favorite band, the Hold Steady, the legendary Craig Finn is joining us today. We're going to talk with him about his brand new album, Always Been, which comes with a new companion book called Lousy with Ghosts, where you get to explore the characters and situations in the songs on Always Been as short stories. So we were fascinated what that process was going to be like. We were excited to talk to him about his upcoming tour with Bob Mould. We were excited to talk with him about the Twins, and he was gracious enough to endure us and then solve a mystery with us. So without further ado, please welcome to the podcast the great Craig Finn.
I like your choice of glasses, Craig. I'm going to
Oh,
say
thank you. They're very similar, huh?
I think we're on the same wavelength.
Mm-hmm.
Where are you zooming in from, Craig, if I
Funny
may
you
ask?
should ask. I'm in Edina, Minnesota.
Okay, you're not too far from me. I'm in Eden Prairie, Minnesota.
Yeah, so I live in Brooklyn, but and I have for 25 years, but I'm here doing a little rehearsal. And my family doesn't live here anymore, but I grew up in Edina. And
Okay.
so I'm staying in the house of my best friend that I met on the first day of first grade. And he has 4 kids, 2 of them which are still here. And because I've tried to stay in a hotel in Minneapolis a couple times, and it's incredibly, it's just something spiritually doesn't have. When you go back to your hometown and you stay at a hotel, there's something wrong. And especially as someone who travels a lot, I just can't do it.
Wow. Yeah, I get it. Totally. So you're going out on, you're doing a tour, right? Coming up like soon.
I'm going out. I leave Monday and we're going out with Bob Mould. And so for about 3 weeks. And then, and my record comes out on April 4th, so a week from today. And so it's all very busy. Just got back from London and Germany, and but yeah, the tour is going to be cool. It's Bob Mould is a hero of mine. I've played with him before, but never toured with him before. But I've become friendly with him, so I'm not nervous about that part. But it all should be really fun. But it's a big, goes all the way up the West Coast and then down into Colorado and through the Midwest. So it's pretty big. It's a lot of driving.
Yeah, I saw that it starts in San Diego on Tuesday.
Yeah, April 1st.
Wow. Yeah, I think that the first time, it's at a venue that did not exist when I lived there, but that's where me and Mike met when we both lived there. But it's down the street from the Casbah, which I think is the first place I ever saw the Hold Steady play. So that's kind of exciting.
Yeah, we've done a lot of great nights at the Casbah. Yeah, I played this place, the Music Box. I think I played there in like 17.
Okay.
It's pretty good, but is it down? I think it might be like downtown.
It's downtown. You turn like out at the Casbah door and go left, and you'll be in Little Italy, I think, based on what I
Yeah. It's not that far, right?
Huh. Well, did Thea and everyone explain sort of what we want to do here? And
I got a list of things, which I looked over yesterday, and they're not fresh on my mind, but they all seemed very possible and doable. So I think we should be in business.
And then we'll try to solve a 5-decade-old children's mystery.
Yeah, I love that. I probably read it originally, but I doubt it'll help.
Okay.
See, that's what I'm in the same boat. You're younger than me, but I grew up reading them, and Connor will read them to me, and I'll be like, yeah, that's probably one that I read and went like, I probably threw the book across the room or just went like, I'm going to bed. I don't know how to solve this anymore.
I'm
But it's very
interested
funny.
in your description. You mentioned sort of dastardly characters, and it did kind of spark memory for me about that, about there being shifty characters in Encyclopedia Brown's world.
Oh, it's full of them. Just two-bit schemes and penny ante attempts to lock our hero up from the
Yeah.
notorious gangs, and more stringed instrument thefts than you would think would happen in one town for a boy to solve. But
A little bit of like Andy Griffith Town. Like, wait, there's a big grifter. There's like a guy who comes through and is like, how big is this town? I thought you knew everyone. This is Idaville, so
I wonder if that's is there xenophobia at the root of this?
I don't know. It's Florida. We don't know where it is in Florida. I don't know.
Is it Florida?
Yeah, Idaville, Florida.
we determined that because there was a mystery involving the cryptid, the skunk ape, which is a local flavor of Florida. So that was what sort of pinned down the the location
Wow,
for us.
very cool.
Yeah,
Donald Sobel? Sobel?
Yes.
Yes.
Donald
I
J.
didn't look that up.
Sullivan.
That was straight from the.
Yeah, nice.
Well, so on the podcast that 280 Mysteries comes from is 372 pages, where we usually read books that we're not prepared to enjoy. We sort of sometimes read mainstream books that we don't think we're going to enjoy. We sometimes dig books out of this weird little Amazon heap that they emerge from. And so it's always a treat when someone we admire writes a book that we know we're going to enjoy. And so when we saw that you had the companion book to Always Been Lousy with Ghosts, we were like, well, maybe that's an in there. And is this the first time that you've ever done the companion book type of thing for your record?
Yeah. So and last time I made a solo record, I did these sort of like narrative bits where we made a video and I had someone kind of like read a thing I wrote from kind of POV of the characters. And so, but they were like 60 seconds long, so they were very short. But it kind of gave me a taste of that. And I thought like it might be interesting to do something where, because there's very much a narrative on the record and sort of like keep exploring the characters. I'd written a lot more than I normally do for a record for this record. I really did like more actual character development. So I kind of like felt like I knew him better and I could do it. And the book, I don't want to say like I just threw it up, but like, it didn't go to an editor or anything. But so it was kind of like straight to the page, but like I felt like I could really kind of riff from the point of view of each of these characters pretty easily and kind of build out the world that was created on the record.
And you said you wanted to do that because you had written more about these characters. Is that something you'd ever wanted to do with, previous records or previous, are there ever characters you wish you had spent more time with?
I think I just realized at some point, and part of it is like liking fiction and befriending some fiction writers and beginning to understand that good writers often write way more than they use. And it's not sort of a tragedy that they don't use it. It's actually very useful in developing the characters and understanding their motivations, etc. And so I kind of just went like, I did like more prose writing on this just to sort of make sure I understood the story and make sure I could sort of see these characters well and move them around in different places and their relationships. And that made writing the book when I did it, which was actually after, but it made it very easy.
Had short
Do
stories.
you find, let me ask you this, like, because I've written, I mostly write comedy, but I've written books and stuff like that. Is it, like, I've met very few people. Do you like writing? Like, as you're doing it, you're like, some people are just like, I just sit down and it just pours out of me.
I like it when
I don't know. Is that some people are? I don't know. Do you?
I like it
enjoy
when I'm doing it. I like it when I'm doing it, but like I have to make myself sit in the chair.
Yeah,
But then
you like it
once
when it's done is my thing. It's like it's
I love it
over.
when it's done.
Now I'm
But
happy.
I like the process. Like I
You
don't
enjoy the
get,
process. Yeah.
yeah, as long as it's something I like. Um, yeah, I do. I was it was even easy to get in the chair today, or I mean this time. But I do, I will say that as a songwriter, and someone who's pretty social, like pretty outgoing, I do think that like the lack of feedback, like the lack of act, like the lack of an audience cheering you on, or even your bandmate being like, "That's awesome,"
Yeah. Yeah.
is hard. Is hard to deal with because
Yeah, that's what I mean.
the
Yeah, it's so
solitary
solo.
nature.
Yeah. Yeah.
I thought that the book was incredible to see the other side of some of these stories because I've been a fan for a long time, and it's fascinating to get the glimpse of the characters on the record. And then when I picked up the book, I didn't understand that it was going to be related to every scene
Yeah,
would have an analog there. So the first time I read it and got to the very first story, I believe talks about the was it from Man I've Always Been, who gets
yeah,
overwhelmed in the grocery
right.
store aisle looking at the orange juice. And
Yeah.
when I sort of realized that it was the same thing happening, it was just sort of a mind blowing type of thing. And then it made every other story. I was like eager to find out which one was going to be the relationship to the song on the album.
Yeah, and like they're not in the same order, but they are kind of like, and for instance, like I really had fun with like some of the ones where it's like the other character talking. Like for instance,
Yeah,
in the song Fletcher's, it's the song about the guy's not. It's a guy who goes to Fletcher's house who tells the story in the song. Fletcher is actually the narrator in the story. And there's kind of like different views of something within that's really fun to me. That those are fun things to write.
yeah, a little Rashomani kind of.
Yeah, and it's like an oral history. Like I love oral histories, like rock books, where like two guys immediately tell the story incorrect, like
Yeah.
contradict each other, and it's right on the same page. Those are because that to me is very rock and roll.
Yeah. So I loved the orange juice detail, and I was wondering if that was based on an actual experience you might have had, because I feel the same way when I walked into the grocery store the other day and saw the Post Malone flavor of Oreos. I just sort of sat there staring, being like,
Yeah, it's I remember like a European was telling me like American supermarkets kind of freak them out. Like that just
Yes.
sort of the bountifulness of it. But I do think orange juice, like I've had that. I've had it with like I never like was a big like milk drinker. Like I don't really like my family never had a lot. Like it wasn't like we poured glasses of milk and we'd have it for cereal, but that's been pretty much it. And like when I go to that, I don't have a preference. I don't know what I like. So like, it's kind of like, and then there's like this like like there's like all these different things. I don't know what it means. It's complete consumerism in a way that like I feel like is there's one that should say like this is the baseline. Like
normal.
this is if
Yes.
you just want basic, you should get this.
I feel like at some point in time I learned that the reason they make all the different beer boxes is just because they just want to muscle the other ones off the shelf. So it's essentially Tropicana being like, now we have calcium. Now we come
Yeah.
in an 8 gallon jug. Like so Minute Maid is pushed off to the side.
Some pulp. I mean, some pulp seems like that one, like that's one that can probably
Yeah.
get caught.
Here's some
I,
pulp
I
for
had a friend
peasants.
who was he was a marketer for I won't say they'll all sue me if I do the food brand, but he would say like he'd go into the grocery store heads and be like, "Hey, I need like this half inch of shelf space. I want to expand the box this much." The guy's like, "What the hell are you planning? Do you know how much
Yeah,
that'll cost you to get that half inch of shelf
right.
space?" Like we've got the we've got the Ghostbusters green goo coming in. What do you
Yeah,
think we are, millionaires? He's, please, just a half an inch. Like, no, I don't think so, buddy. Unless you got a big pocketbook.
I like the like when you go in, and this is more of a Brooklyn thing than it was in Minnesota where I grew up, but sometimes like just a real old looking product too, like where something like comes from like it's like from the 1950s, Like I'm trying to think of an example, but it's just something that's like not branded and not, or it's like
Mike has been trying to track down a can of hobo soup on eBay. I'm not sure if you're familiar with
Yes,
that.
I
But
don't know if you know that small town, like if you go up north, like we go to a cabin and you go like, let's just get I got to get some canned food, and there was a thing called hobo soup
Oh,
with a literal like a drawing of like an old timey hobo with a bindle on his back and a beard, and and I said, this is a real thing. And everyone was like, you made that up. It's a false memory. You know, it's the Berenstein Bears. I'm like, no, it's real. So anyway, they sell it on eBay. It is real. You can.
do you remember the soda Rondo?
Yes, right.
Yeah,
You can slam it down quick.
Connor, did you grow up in Minnesota?
no, I was from D.C., Virginia.
And you don't remember Rondo, do you?
I'm not familiar. No.
So this is like one of these things. Rondo, like it was before, like still when most cans were like steelish, like a little
Yeah.
heavier. And Rondo was like an early aluminum can. It was the thirst crusher, I think. Thirst
It
quencher.
was.
So you could, and then you could crush the can. And in the ad, the guy crushed the can like that, one-handed. And I got it when I was a kid, like you'd play a soccer game and they bring Rondo, and you could barely wait to finish it because you wanted to crush the can. So we had this conversation in the Hold Steady, and like there was like big question marks over most people's heads. But me and Steve Selvage were just like, no, Rondo, you crushed the can, And we looked it up and did some research, and it was test marketed in Minneapolis and Memphis, which is where he's from.
Wow.
And it never really like caught on.
I didn't know I was one of a test market. I assumed the whole country was going crazy for Rondo.
Well, because
Skiing down hills and then crushing cans. And like,
yeah.
and then I remember the guy in the ad, like he drank it, but then he spit out a bunch of it.
Yeah.
Like, wait, how bad is it? Like,
it was like a lightly carbonated lemon soda, right?
Lightly, yeah. So you could slam it down.
But it was like a juicy fruit of soda in that you did it after extreme activity.
I don't think that I ever had. I think it was always like my parents were like, "What do you think we are, millionaires?"
Aspirational soda.
Rondo.
I had a lot of Rondo. It had like a lemon tree, I think, on the can.
Yeah.
It was it was healthy. And I think you're right. I think there was like a dirt skiing.
Dirt skiing. Yep. Yeah. The first time I
ad.
ever saw that, extreme sports. It was. I didn't know I was a test market. Wow.
Stunning that this didn't take on nationwide with this.
I thought it was as good as some of the other ones for sure.
That'd be a great market for it tagline. It's as good as the other ones.
As good as some of the other ones.
Now Rondo has some pulp. I don't know.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a few more questions about the songs on the album?
Yeah, please.
So you mentioned Fletcher's, which it calls to mind God in Chicago from a couple of records ago. Is there a decision you make when you have a story you want to tell that is sort of, I don't know, for a better lack of word, like a talking song, like a storytelling song like that?
I kind of feel like I like having a talking song on every record. Messing with the settings on the last one was kind of a talking song. I guess my album, my 2019 record, I Need a New War, doesn't really have one, but I like those. And it's almost like just finding it's not really a loop, but like a bed of music that kind of moves you to write the story.
Huh.
Each of them that I've done has come together really quickly. Like I kind of you get into and it's like this, it's because it's not rhyming, but it's like just, there's like some rhythm and some close enough rhymes that it keeps the momentum going. And those are really fun songs for me. I don't know why I take such satisfaction, but they're really, I think they're unique, and people seem to really react to them.
Yeah, I think I looked today. God in Chicago might have been a top played Spotify stream song at least.
Yeah, there seems to be like something like right on the edge of singing and talking there, like that. I feel like it's like skipping, like it's not running or walking. It's like, just lifting off in certain places. That's fun. And you can kind of go deeper, obviously, because there's more words, and you can kind of get into like a character, but also, state of a point of view, or a way of telling the story.
The other question I had was in Crumbs on the new record. I heard it and I thought back. Me and Mike are currently reading a book that takes place in the 20 teens, and there's people on their phones all the time. And I've always thought that it's it's not a pet peeve, but I like it when a movie or a book or something just doesn't acknowledge the current state of things where people are on their phones all the time and where people sort of live this online life. And the daughter in Crumbs was on her phone. I think the line about how she's on her phone a lot. And I couldn't think about whether there was, phone stuff in Craig Finn or Hold Steady songs. Is it hard to write characters that are not living an online life, or is it a conscious decision, or is it just sort of what comes naturally to you?
I mean, there are some texts in my songs.
Okay.
Because like people, getting texts. I think it's like you don't want to get there's sort of sacred real estate's sort of sacred in a song, so you only want to say, well, then he looked at his phone, But in that song, I really liked because I don't have kids, but I was, a lot of my friends do, and I was talking with someone about how their kids today have a very like there's a whole world happening in their phone.
Yeah.
So it's like my friend was saying, he or she may be getting bullied at school or maybe not, but then they get home and shit might be going down in their phone that you don't even know about. And how there's this whole other highs and lows that are happening on the phone. And the Crumbs is sort of about someone who has a teenage daughter who's like seeing them start to get into some of the drama and heartbreak that is like growing up,
Yeah. Oh, it's such a different vibe, I think, from just how all of us grew up and type of thing. When you look back at the videos of high schools and stuff like that of people, it's hard not to be like, we had it better during the time when you would not be just sitting there looking at it. But that's
we certainly had it different. I mean, I'm personally glad there weren't phones, and I'm glad there weren't cameras.
My son said to me, because I said, oh, we all went on this big trip when I was like in my 20s. We went down to Chicago, a bunch of us, like we rented a van. So it's like 12 of us or something. And then we all just went away. And then we said, we'll meet on this day. And he said, did you have phones? We're like, no, of course we didn't have phones. What are you talking about? He's like, how did you meet back up? We're like, I honestly don't remember. I don't remember. I remember seeing a guy. I was in Chicago and I saw a guy on the L who was part of our group. I'm like, hey man, what's going on? Where are you going? He's like, I'm going down to the game. Like, oh, we're going uptown because we're going over here. He's like, okay, see ya in a couple days. And it's like, I honestly don't remember how we did it. How did we meet up again?
I mean, I toured before cell phones. Yeah. It was a mess. It was a mess. And, it's like someone would wander off and it would be like, I don't know. But, my niece told me a while ago, she's now 12, but this was probably when she was 8. She said she likes watching movies, but she doesn't like any old-fashioned movies. And I said, well, what would be like an old-fashioned movie? And she took a phone. She said, hello, no, he's not here right now. Can I take a message?
Oh.
And it was like, she doesn't want to see a landline.
I feel like Red Fox at the moment. Like, oh, that's just a dagger. Wow. She doesn't like she likes movies, but she doesn't like old-fashioned movies. Sounds like a lyric. And that's it.
Yeah.
The producer on this, the sound of the record, I thought was different from the beginning, and I listened to it for the first time walking around, and I think it clicked on Luke and Leanna. I think it was like, oh right, it was produced by Adam Granduciel. Is that how you say his last name?
Granduciel, yeah.
Of the War on Drugs. And he played on it, as did the band members. What was that like, and how did it come to pass to work with him? I've heard, in my mind, he was sort of like an Axl Rose kind of figure in terms of the studio, like getting everything perfect. So I was curious if that was an earned reputation or if it was fun to work with him or exciting.
Yeah, I mean, Adam and I have been friends. The Hold Steady took on War on Drugs on, I think, their first U.S. tour, 2009.
Oh man,
we've been friends since, and we've always kind of like talked loosely about doing something, and I asked him to produce this record. One of the reasons I asked him was, well, for a few reasons. One is that I think when he makes his own music, War on Drugs, it's going on a journey of sound, and from what he's told me and what I think is that he kind of goes and goes and goes and does music, change tempo, change feel, change like all these adjustments, and eventually gets to the point where he like writes lyrics and kind of makes it into a song. I'm the exact opposite. I have like a story and two chords, and I'm trying to like turn it into a song. So I felt like meeting in the middle of these two opposite approaches might be cool. And but I also knew him, kind of what you're saying is like a studio, genius. But also I knew him as someone who I felt like he had a lot of joy around the studio. And I thought, his band's done really well. He's won Grammys. I saw him play at the Madison Square Garden. It's like maybe he would like a chance to like use all that cool gear he has without the pressure of his own record. And I don't know if that was the correct. I don't know if that was part of it, but he was quick to agree when I asked him, and it was one of the better decisions I made because I think he was great. And you can read or talk to artists, be like, "Oh, it's one of the most difficult records I've ever made." This is the opposite. This was like just a breeze, and one of the reasons was I said at the beginning I wanted to make a real direct record, so we kind of had that in mind that like we didn't make the songs trickier than they needed to be or anything, but it was just a pleasure. And it was a lot of, even though a lot of people played on it, um, some of that, a good amount of that was through the miracles of technology. So a lot of the times it was just me and Adam in the studio, and his engineer. So it was just kind of sweet.
Yeah. Well, I thought it sounded great and unique and exciting to sort of hear those two worlds combined, and I'm glad that's sort of how it came to pass.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm a huge fan of War on Drugs. So I like Luca Milano, the song you talked about, like he sent me a mix of that. I remember I was in Toronto and I like went out jogging with it like and to listen to the first time of the real, Vid done, and I was just like so psyched. Like he really kind of nails that really upbeat thing there that is probably that might be the piece that might be the most resemblable of the War on Drugs.
Cool. Mike, do you have any more questions? You have a outlook on the Twins season since opening day was yesterday?
Oh yeah, I haven't followed. The disappointments of these last decades have been too much for me. I follow at a distance, like at arm's length. Like my son will be like, "Hey, did you see what they did?" I'm like, "Hey, give me
I
a
love
second."
I'm like I love the Twins. I love sports, and the
I
Twins
do
are my
too.
number one team of any sport. I'm not particularly optimistic right now.
Yeah.
And I'm an optimist. I think the sale of the team is going to hang over it. I think they're for sale and they don't seem to have any suitors, and they that makes me think they won't spend money. I do not. I feel like we're maybe an injury away from a real disaster, and I'm not. I'm not. I'd love to be proved wrong, and I will be on the bandwagon as soon as I am. But like as of now, normally I purchase the package so I can watch it in Brooklyn.
Mhm.
I put that money towards a Timberwolves package this year.
Yeah,
Wow.
well, that says all it needs to. Is there a particular twin of your that could warrant a song about him, do you think?
Well, I have written. There's that band, the Baseball Project, that writes songs about baseball, and I wrote one about the '65 World Series team, Zolio Versailles being the MVP that year, and also a fun name to say.
Hmm.
So that's kind of my twins. My twin. It was called "Please Don't Call Them Twinkies" because I hate that when people
Oh,
call
sure.
them.
Yeah.
But I
Very,
think
I
that
love
might
love
be.
that song, by the way. I think.
But Ken Herbeck is I think very much worthy of a song. I think that he's probably my all-time favorite player. I mean, it's tied with Kirby Puckett, but it's Ken Herbeck's just there's some things about him being local, him being a little bit like um, there's just something about that guy that makes me happy.
Yeah. The last.
That was the time when we had the two greatest names in baseball. I mean, and that's a pretty high bar,
Uh,
obviously, but Kent Herbeck and Kirby Puckett.
yeah.
Like my
Well,
my kids were little at the time, and they just loved saying the names. Just
there,
like, who's that? Is that Kirby Puckett? Like, and every little kid, you'd go, "Hey, you gonna be another Kirby Puckett?" They go, "Kirby Puckett."
Kirby Puckett had his fan base under 10 was like wild. You know what I mean? Like
Oh yeah.
Herbeck was more for the adults, I think. But even when Kirby died and they had the thing at the Dome, I think Ken Herbeck made a joke during his eulogy or whatever that there's a lot of like pairs of animals in Minnesota named Kirby and Herbie. You know,
Yeah.
you get two horses and
Oh,
it's Kirby
two
and Herbie.
corgis. Oh man.
Yeah, corgis.
Yeah.
I met my kid played basketball and Kirby Puckett's son was on his team, so I'd go in there and a few times I just sat next to a folding chair next to Kirby Puckett. It's like one of those things where you're just like, I have nothing to say. Like, what am I going to do? Like, turn and go like, you're a really good baseball player. Like, there's nothing. I would
My
just
mom,
suddenly turn.
this is great. My mother at Jerry's Supermarket in Edina busted him out of the like 10 items or less lane. Uh, she counted his items and he was like, okay, you can go ahead.
Oh, wow.
I don't care how many rings you have. I don't care how
Yeah,
many
yeah,
times you put the
exactly.
team on your back.
Yeah,
That's
13 items. I'm going ahead of you.
the apples are one item, ma'am. Please, it's 4 apples, but it's. Well, on that same note of you trying to ask Kirby Puckett a question, Mike, this is maybe the last question, and then we can transfer into some mystery solving.
Yes,
But
yes.
Craig, I've been asked to officiate a wedding twice, and one time it was my sister's, and I talked about Field of Dreams, and the other time was my best friend Danny, and I talked about how at every Hold Steady show, or everyone I've been to, you usually end by telling the audience that there is so much joy in what we do up here. So I have a two-part question, and one to summon Chris Farley. Is that true?
So much joy. Yeah. I mean, absolutely. And it's funny, like there's been times when I've had not good days, or of the shows, or not good weeks, or even like nerves. We opened up for the Replacements in 2014. It's my favorite band. I was scared all day. I wanted it to go well. But when the music starts and I've got my guitar on and I look around and my bandmates are there, it's all good. Like, and not only is it good, but it feels like I gain a lot of confidence. And it's that part's always awesome. The part getting there, the part waiting around for the show, ups and downs, but the actual 90 minutes to 2 hours that we're on stage playing music is always joyful.
Awesome. Well, I said that was the last question before the mystery, but I do have one more.
I know what it's going to be. Is it going to be our question?
Yes, me and Mike have had this question for
Okay,
a
go ahead.
long time. Obviously, big Replacements fans, but we have a schism that has nearly torn Riff Tracks, turned the podcast asunder over whether the preferred version of Can't Hardly Wait is the one with the horns or the more electric, grittier Tim version that was on one of the compilations they released. Do you have a preference? Can you tell us who was right or wrong?
I remember getting the cassette, the Shit Hits the Fans, and it's on that. And I remember thinking, like, what is this song? It's so good. But then I never heard the Tim one because like that wasn't released. And then, so then I became known as the horns version on Pleased to Meet Me. And because of just sort of the history and the memory of that, that's my preferred version. And, I get when people say that the rockin' one's better, but I don't know. How do I say this? They're my favorite band, but I haven't spent so much time with the B-sides and the ephemera. I loved going to the shows. I love the records when they come out. And those are like, to me, I'm very much connected to memory of what it is and what it was like, then going back and searching through things that weren't released until 20 years later. And that's in all bands.
Sure. And
Okay, I think we have our answer. Yeah, no, my son will do the same. He'll play something on his phone from I turned both my sons are like into the Replacements. and they'll play something and it'll be an obscure bootleg of the Replacements. They go, Dad, huh? I don't know what this is. Like, you don't know this? You grew up with the Replacements. I'm like, well,
like,
I didn't know everything.
Yeah, no, I'm just like, I don't know what these things. And also, maybe this is, again, they're my favorite band. This might be sacrilegious. I think they've maybe gone to the well one too many times now.
Could be.
Like it's fine. Like, I don't need another
double secret probation edition of Let It Be.
Like, that's the industry that we're in, so it's not their fault. It's the record labels are like, how, for the next year's anniversary of October 4th,
Yeah.
Well, it also must be interesting too if you, having worked with Adam on the record too, and having someone else help you craft the song. If you did have another version of it that didn't have this overdub or that overdub or that type of thing, it's interesting to sort of think about how that can affect, someone's perception of a song, decades down the line. If it was like, if people are going to be arguing about that, and it was just a studio choice.
I released, I've been doing a Substack, and I've been putting out like the 2 songs we've released so far. I put out demos of them just so people can kind of see, because I think that is interesting. Like, I write songs on a nylon string classical guitar. I sing them into my phone. I don't do any demos like that are more elaborate than that. I do a voice memo, and that's like what the song's like. And I think like it's kind of interesting to look back and say like, so that became that. And actually on the 2 ones that on this record, there's a very straight line. I mean, like I think anyone could hear it, like, oh, that's the song. Just sounds like he sang it into his phone first.
Should we press him into a mystery, Connor?
Let's do it. Yeah, it was a fascinating conversation. I'm really glad we did it, and the album's great, and the book is great, and
thank you. Well,
enlightening to hear all this stuff too. I could probably talk for longer, but let's do a mystery.
Yeah.
We've selected one. I was weighing 2 of them, and I went with one. There was one that involved the 10-item checkout lane, and I wish I had picked that one. But this one is The Case of the Mysterious Thief. It is from a book called The Case of the Dead Eagle, the 12th Encyclopedia Brown book from 1975. So it could have been
sweet spot,
both in the wheelhouse for you guys. And this, I think, was on one of these Encyclopedia Brown's craziest mysteries lists. So Craig, Mike has done this with guests, done it solo, has maybe a 50% hit rate on these.
Oh, come on. I'm a little better than 50%.
But it is not something that we need to feel bad about if we
No.
But again, this is a world to explore, so feel free to throw in whenever you have something you want to observe.
Yeah.
Here we go. Encyclopedia had a chance to solve a mystery at lunchtime when Sally suggested they bike to Mario's restaurant. Sally is his assistant, the toughest and prettiest girl in school. We've got enough money saved up, she said. We can pick up a pizza and something to drink and eat lunch by the duck pond. A neat idea, said Encyclopedia. If we have any leftovers, we can feed the ducks. Mario's restaurant was on 4th Street. When the detectives arrived, only 4 tables were being used. It was 10 minutes past noon.
All right, we're just flat out calling them the detectives now, right? How old are they?
They're 12.
12. Okay. Yeah. The detectives arrived. Okay.
Oh, the great detectives have arrived.
Is Sally a detective? Because she's also a detective, right?
I think so.
She's his assistant. She's kind of his muscle too, right? Doesn't she? She beats up Bugs Meany.
Yeah.
He cowers in fear. I'm not sure exactly how board certified any of these titles are, but if they're operating the agency together, I guess that
citizens arrest.
I gotta say they're coming right at lunch. Pretty slow lunch, if only the four tops. I'm assuming they're 4 2 tops. Yeah. Pretty slow lunch. But anyway, go ahead.
I'll let you know. Yeah. The detectives went to the takeout counter. While waiting to give their order, Encyclopedia had a chance to study the room. Against the wall stood a row of tables for 2, empty except for a middle-aged couple. The man was slender and sat with his back to the wall. Facing him was a beefy woman in a tight brown dress. They were eating spaghetti.
Michael Corleone was not there. There was no gun taped to a toilet anywhere.
This one could go in a dark direction.
Okay.
So slender man, beefy woman eating spaghetti. 3 men and a very fat woman sat by a table by the window. They were sharing a pizza. The woman ate daintily with a knife and fork. The men used their fingers and talked with their mouths full. I don't know how you're parsing beefy versus very fat, but that's for the mores of these.
I was going to say I'm going to leave that to 1975 to sort out. I don't really know what that means.
At a table near the takeout counter were 2 men and 2 women drinking coffee. The men were arguing about baseball. The women seemed bored.
Seems about right.
At the 4th table were 5 young men wearing the uniform of the telephone company. They were eating submarine sandwiches and joking with a waitress. We can always go back and review any of this if these people came fast and furious. A bearded cook appeared at the takeout counter. "What'll it be, kids?" he inquired. "1 all-the-way pizza and 2 large root beers, please," said Encyclopedia. "Ready in a few minutes," said the cook. "You can wait over there." He pointed to a bench next to the cash register. Encyclopedia and Sally sat down, their backs to the tables. "Something funny is going on here," whispered Sally. "I didn't notice anything," replied Encyclopedia. "What is it?" Sally shrugged uneasily. "I'm not sure. I can't quite put my finger on it." A few minutes later, the beefy woman in brown and the slender man stopped at the cash register. They paid their check and left. The next to depart were the 5 telephone company men. Yeah. As they stopped to pay, a scream sounded from the rear of the restaurant. "Trouble," said one of the men. He dropped 2 bills hastily by the cash register. "Let's get out of here."
The telephone guys wanted to get out of there?
Yeah, the 5 telephone guys. Who were
5?
Eating,
I thought it was 4. Geez, see?
5 young men, yeah, eating submarine sandwiches.
Okay, all right.
So they've dropped their bills and are skedaddling. "Police! Call the police!" a woman screamed. And I'll share the image of the bearded man who's going to be sorry.
He's the one who's going to make the pizza for them and give them the 2 large root beers?
Yes. So here he is. The bearded cook rushed to the telephone, and I think you see the 5 telephone guys who are filing out.
I will say I've had a few jobs where I've had to wear hard hats. If you're going into a pizza place, do not take those off. You never know when a pizza place will collapse. Keep your hard hats on.
All right. While the bearded cook rushed to a telephone, the rest of the customers rushed for the door. No one wanted to get involved. Within 3 minutes, Officer Carlson drove up in a patrol car. Encyclopedia and Sally followed him to a large table in the rear. Seated around the table were the only persons remaining in the restaurant: the bearded cook, 2 waitresses, Mario himself, and a dark-haired young woman with a bruise on her jaw. They all started chattering at the sight of Officer Carlson. He had trouble quieting them. It was a while before he was able to piece together what had happened. Every Tuesday, Mario had the cash from the business put in the bank. The dark-haired young woman was his daughter, Isabel. As it was Tuesday, she had started for the bank with the money in an envelope in her purse, but she never got there. "I stopped in the ladies' room to freshen my makeup," she said. "I heard the door open behind me. The only thing I ever saw was a fist." A waitress had discovered her on the floor unconscious. Her pocketbook lay open. The envelope with the money was gone. Officer Carlson said, "Who knew about the weekly trips to the bank?" "Everyone here," answered Mario, a short, friendly man, "but I trust them all. Wait. John Rizzo knew. He was my cook, but I fired him last week." "Did you see him today?" asked Officer Carlson. "No," said Mario heavily. Officer Carlson looked around. The door to the ladies' room can be seen from any of the tables, so the thief knew when Isabel entered it. "The thief can't be a woman," said Mario. "No woman could knock out my Isabel with one punch. Isabel can carry a 50-pound sack of flour under each arm. She is very, very strong." "And the thief can't be a man," said Officer Carlson. "A man certainly wouldn't have caused an outcry going into the ladies' room. He wouldn't have risked it." "So who does that leave?" exclaimed Mario. "John Rizzo," said Sally. "You know him?" said Mario in surprise. "No," said Sally, "but you said that he knew about the weekly trips to the bank." "I don't see how you can decide that John Rizzo is the thief," said Encyclopedia. That's because you are a boy, answered Sally, and boys today haven't learned their manners. End of mystery. It says, what had Sally seen?
Wow.
So
that is...
I'm happy to revisit anything here, but remember these are for 9 to 12-year-old children.
There's a lot of characters.
It admittedly is a lot of characters.
I feel like Craig is sitting there like Columbo, and he's just going to go, this one is easy, you kids.
No, I don't know, but...
Yeah, what is your... Usually your first suspicion is your...
My suspicion, given the manners, puts me at the table with the very heavy woman who's eating the pizza with a knife and fork, and the others chewing with their mouths open.
Okay.
Bad manners. But I don't get the rest.
That's usually a good sign if you have anything at all, because to me there's so much chaff. They just like throw salt in your eyes, and then you just as soon as you get the salt washed out, they throw dirt in your eyes, and you're like, what? They being Donald J. Sobel, sorry. So I'm not sure. This is the most characters we've ever had in a.
This is like a logic puzzle that they test you with for the LSATs or something. It's like, so this table had 3 men and a very fat woman. That was the 3 men and the very fat woman sharing a pizza. She ate daintily with a knife and fork, but the men used their fingers and talked with their mouths full.
Okay. And so what was Sally's last proclamation?
She said, boys today haven't learned their manners. And that's why Encyclopedia couldn't say what she was doing.
Okay. So, but 3 guys eating with no manners, but the one was cutting her pizza like Sylvester Stallone in Cobra, cutting her pizza with a pair of scissors.
Very much so.
Yes. Thank you. I assume that's where everyone goes with that. Boy, oh boy. I don't know. I think you're... Craig, I think you're right. I think it has something to do with the manners, but I can't connect the two. I don't know what it is.
The beefy and the slender.
The man was
the first to leave.
Says the man was slender and sat with his back to the wall. Facing him was a beefy woman in a tight brown dress. They were eating spaghetti, and it says, yes, the beefy woman in brown and the slender man stopped at the cash register. They paid their check and left.
Okay, the beefy woman, I don't know how I know this. The beefy woman is actually a man, because you don't describe a woman as beefy. So, I mean, Donald J. Sobel wouldn't. So I don't know how, but that person is dressed as a woman and somehow was able to go into the ladies' restroom.
Is there a manner? I mean, I'm sorry, I know Emily Post, but should someone take the... Is facing the wall or whatever way he's facing impolite?
That's a good thought too.
Meaning, like, if they're both men, then it wouldn't matter. But if not, then he's being rude by sitting in that chair. But I don't know if that's true.
That's a good call. Well, the last one I solved was about the umpire not turning his backside to the crowd, and Conor and the other guy trying to solve it were like, I think you're making that up. I'm like, no, I'm pretty sure that's just manners. You're not supposed to show your backside. So that could be right. All right, but we have a time limit on it. We usually say, okay, those are the clues. So I'm just going to throw, I don't know.
Beefy woman is mine. That's right. Yeah.
Okay. All right. This is like, I mean, that was impressive to watch them come together, I will say. The thief, here's the solution to the case of the mysterious thief. The thief had to look like a woman and punch like a man. In short, a man dressed as a woman.
Okay.
John Rizzo had dressed as a woman, and his wife had dressed as a man. Sally's clue, I should have had you take big sips. Sally's clue was their positions at the table. When a man and a woman sit at a table for 2 by the wall, good manners call for the woman to face out so she can see and be seen. The man faces the wall. But Mrs. Rizzo, dressed as the man, had sat with her back to the wall. She needed a full view of the restaurant to act as lookout while her husband stole the money. only Sally remembered that the beefy woman and the slender man had sat in the wrong places. Thanks to Sally, the Rizzos were caught. That was incredible.
Good, pretty good.
Wow.
I'm going to claim 100% solved on that one.
Oh yeah, that was 100%
okay.
teamwork too.
That was good teamwork. Yeah, we had to. Yeah.
Is that something you remember from childhood, being told that you have to let the woman look out, Craig, or was that just a?
This seems like something like that would be like from my grandma. My grandma would tell me, and then I'd be like, "Oh, I'd never considered that." Which I hope that doesn't make. But walking on the right, like where you walk compared to the curb, etc.
Sure. Yeah, my wife had the Emily Post book was in her house for a while, and she would have people, just younger people, just open it up and look at some of the things she says. But one of the things she always said is, Emily Post says it's okay to pick up a plate when you're at someone else's house for dinner and look at the bottom to see who made the plate, but only if you then go, how nice, it's from so and so, but you have to compliment. Like, wow, that is old school.
Yeah,
oh, man.
Yeah. There's a lot of this old school stuff that I think has been lost too.
Yeah.
Well, our nation's 12-year-olds who are still getting these books at Scholastic Book Fairs are going to be the ones who maintain it into the next heart of the millennium.
Question: how early does I assume you guys know? How early does Encyclopedia Brown go?
I believe it started in the mid 60s, and he sort of cranked out, one a year for a while, and it went until 2011 or something, like well past, probably when after I had seen The Hold Steady for the first time at the Casbah. So
I think that because I feel like when I read him as a kid, which would have been, I was born in 71, so let's say that's like 78, 79, 80. They felt so ancient to me.
Yeah.
Like they felt like the 50s.
Yeah, and they've remained stuck there. Like we've done ones from the end of the series and are being like, is Encyclopedia Brown going to solve the